In order to checkmate with a knight and a bishop, it would be better to learn the checkmate patterns and the method called W maneuver first. But since there are many related videos on YouTube, I start with how to drive the opposing king to a corner of the board. If you don't know about the checkmate patterns and the W maneuver, please watch the video part 2 first. I will tell you beforehand. My moves are not always the best. However, it's easy to learn. The goal is to checkmate within 49 moves. One mistake can lead to a draw with the 50-move rule. We will learn from our mistakes. The first step is to drive the black king out of the center 4 squares. The next step is to drive the black king out of the center 16 squares. To drive the black king out of the center 4 squares, place the white king in one of those squares. For that, white needs to control d5 and e5. Now that the knight has controlled d5 square, white forces the black king outside the center 4 squares. The first goal has achieved. Next, drive the black king out of the center 16 squares. White can control dark squares with the bishop but needs to control light squares with the knight or king. The second goal has achieved. From here, drive the black king to the a8 or h8 corner while preventing the king from coming inside the center 16 squares again. Let's remember the following things before continuing. As shown in the picture, drive the black king outside the diagonals that consist of the same colored squares as the bishop. To avoid checkmate, the black king usually goes toward the corners that are the opposite colored squares as the bishop. However, the king may also go toward the corners that are the same colored squares as the bishop. Let's remember one more pattern. The pattern is to drive the black king outside the diagonal that consists of the 6 squares. When the black king goes toward the corners that are opposite colored squares as the bishop, you will drive the king outside the 6 squares diagonal before the 4 squares diagonal. Although it's not so easy to keep the black king outside the 6 squares diagonal, you can deal with that if you know how to do that. The first thing you need to know is that the black king often escapes through the squares of opposite color as the bishop. The black king tries to escape through green squares to the other side of the diagonal. It's useful to know the escape route of the black king. Now, to keep the black king outside the 6 squares diagonal, white needs to control the green squares, b3, c4, e6, and f7. The knight has controlled the escape route, b3 and c4, so white will control e6 and f7 with the king. White has blocked all the escape routes. Then, control the squares, b5, c6, and d7 with the king and knight so that white can restrict the territory of the black king. The king has already controlled d7, so the knight will control b5 and c6. Watch out for the black king escaping a4 to b3 when the knight controls b5 and c6. The bishop to b4 prevents the black king from going to a4. Alternatively, move the bishop to c7 after the black king goes to a6. White has driven the black king outside the 4 squares diagonal. Moving the white king to the square is a pattern. After that, control b8 with the bishop and move the knight to b6. Move the knight from c4 to b6 because controlling a5 with knight c4 is useful in some situations. I'll show you later. The position is the starting position of W maneuver. I explain it in the Part 2 video. Let's take a look when the black king is at a8. It's the same position earlier. Watch out for this position. Knight b6, king a5 annoys us. It's easier to make the position the starting position of W maneuver. So, bishop d6, king a7. White can play bishop d6 because the knight controls a5. This position is more comfortable to handle. Let's go back to this position. This position is the same pattern that drove the black king outside the 6 squares diagonal. Let's take a look if the black king goes toward the h-file. The black king usually goes toward the a8 corner to avoid checkmate, but sometimes it goes toward the h-file. If the black king goes toward the h-file, first prevent the king from entering the center 16 squares again. The best move is bishop f6, but no problem. If the black king goes to e8, the white king is going to e6. It looks like the black king will escape to the h1 corner. The best move is knight g5, and it can drive the black king outside the 5 squares diagonal. Although you can drive the black king outside the 6 squares diagonal with bishop f4, it will take more moves until checkmate. White has driven the black king outside the 5 squares diagonal. Next, create a cage with knight e5. Remember this pattern that confines the black king with the knight and bishop. The rest is mechanical moves until the checkmate. Now, the black king can only move g8 and h8. In this situation, move the knight to f6 square even if the black king is at h8 square now. This endgame is difficult in the beginning. Some mistakes often lead to 50 moves draw. However, it's fun. Let's play against a computer first. You will learn from your mistakes. I recommend playing the endgame against a computer once or twice a month, in order not to forget the endgame. In my experience, this endgame is more difficult against a human opponent because computers always move in the same way, so it's easier to deal with them. I hope this will help you. Thanks for watching.